Let's go ahead and do a quick check here. Double check the stream. There we go. And just like that, we're live. Hail, adventurers. Welcome back to the Wyvern's Lair. I am DM Wyvern, returning back to my playthrough of Pool of Radiance, the first in the Gold Box series of games, with a very special guest this evening. None other than game developer, my good friend, and former boss, George Ziets.
Hello, Weiss. Good to talk again.
Here in this part of the realms, George, I'm known as Wyvern. So, if you could,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
I'm sorry.
no worries. I've been outed. I've been doxxed by George Ziets here. But yes.
Oh crap! I'm sorry.
No worries. But yes, if you could call me Wyvern for the rest of the stream, I'd be very grateful. Okay. But yeah, we're here with some great company. Let's take a look at who we have here in the live stream audience before we get underway. I will be making a point of checking the live stream chat, making sure we're capturing questions, comments, feedback for George Ziets here. How is the stream going? I'm getting a little... Let me double check the stream health here. Should be going well. Bidoof says immediately doxed. It's over. We're joined by Bug Mite, Hacksaw91, Garrus, AK Lizard Flame 1, Shadow Dragon, and Budophilia. Morn as well. Good to have everyone here. Donald's here as well. Thank you all for being here. Is the stream working okay for everyone? We're not... You guys aren't experiencing any technical issues on your end? I'm sorry for coming in hot here, but yeah. It seems like the stream is working well. All good on the stream, says Garrus. Okay, good. We can get underway. So for those of you who might not be familiar with George Ziets, he is a renowned game developer. I'm gonna big you up here, George. You are my former boss after all, so I had to do a certain amount of that. But no, George has a really exciting resume as a game developer. In the run up to this stream, I shared information about some of the past games that he's worked on. And amongst your credits, George, I think you have a plethora of game credits, but some of the big standouts include your work on Neverwinter Nights 2. Of course, your role as creative director on Massacre of the Betrayer. And then you went on to work on really exciting titles like Torment, Tides of Numenera, with friends like Colin McComb and Adam Hine. And from there, you raced off to some great work with Obsidian on titles like Fallout New Vegas and Pillars of Eternity. And I think that you capped off your career as an employee in the games industry at In Exile, working as the... you were working on Wasteland 3 in what capacity again? If you could refresh my memory here.
I was lead designer, but I was also kind of narrative lead. So
Right.
Officially lead designer, but also I was the narrative person on that.
Gotcha. Thank you for clarifying that for us. So George has always been very generous with his time. Over the years, he's given many talks at universities around the Ohio area and further afield. I think that you actually went off with one of your colleagues at Digimancy to some sort of literary conference in Estonia earlier this year.
Yes.
If memory serves me
Yes,
well.
in May, we gave a talk at in Tartu. Is it University of Tartu? I think it's the University of Tartu. But they had like this literary / arts festival, and actually there were other game people there. Josh Sawyer was there too. I hadn't seen him in, I don't know, 10 years or something. And some other folks, some other game people were there too.
Yeah, it was a really exciting visit in May. So yes, as I was explaining here, George is always generous with his time. He's given a number of interviews over the years, including for those of you who might want to sort of have deep dives into some of the games that he's worked on in the past. I really highly encourage everyone here to check out Matt Barton, Matt Chat. I think that's the name of his channel.
Oh yes.
He's done a great job of talking to game developers who have a passion for computer role-playing games, including, of course, George here. So he has some really dedicated one-on-ones with George talking about specific titles in your catalog. So if you want to have a deep dive into George's work on Mask of the Betrayer, Matt has you covered. We definitely, could touch on some of that tonight. I'm looking forward to questions from the audience here. But really, this is about origins. We have teleported, prior to going live here, George was watching the loading screen for Pool Radiance, and he saw, a Advanced Dungeons and Dragons computer role-playing game product from 1988, so I thought that given the fact that I've been playing a throwback game on my channel, this would be a really great opportunity to talk to developers like George from the game industry, and hopefully some people from this era of TSR, just about, their journey into an art form, if you will, or a type of game that really shaped their lives and careers. So George, why don't you tell us a little bit about, what were some of the things that sort of got you interested in fantasy when you were growing up, and where did you grow up?
Sure. So before I do that, though, Weiss, can I just say I love your character names. They feel really gold box, but they're also like interesting and entertaining, and I love them. Anyway,
thank you.
Gosh, I mean, I started playing D&D. Well, I grew up in New Jersey, actually, United States, and I started playing D&D when I was 9, I think, and that's really how I got started, like tabletop D&D, with a group of other kids who I played with every weekend, basically throughout the next, God, I don't know, until I guess I was about 17 at the end of high school.
Wow.
And that's essentially how I learned to do what I'm doing now. I wasn't like some amazing game designer at the end of all of that. It took a lot of years in the industry to get good, but like it teaches you quite a bit. Like coming up with, because I was the DM, and coming up with adventures and improvising on the spot and coming up with interesting, creative, fun narratives. Like all of that is really good training for doing D&D, or for doing game design or video game design. And then actually after I was doing, or after I had already gotten into tabletop, is really when I was doing more with video games. I guess, I mean, technically, I suppose my first RPG that I played, and it really was like a moment where I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, this is unlike any game I've ever played, was a game called Dragon Stomper. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Dragon Stomper?
But
We can check it
Dragon
out.
Stomper.
We can check it out. Let's go
Yeah,
take a look at Dragon Stomper right now. So this is the fun thing
it's
about this stream. Like I can actually go onto Google and look up this stuff. So let's take a look at Dragon Stomper. Oh my goodness, look at this. Can you
oh yeah,
I'm sharing screen with you so you can see this too.
yeah, absolutely.
Let's see.
So if you just look at those screenshots,
Yeah, let's take a look at these
um,
screenshots.
oh yeah, and this by the way was played off of a
Wow.
cassette tape.
A
It was
cassette
the
tape.
Atari, the Atari 2600. It was this special attachment with a cassette tape. But oh my God, I played the hell out of this game. And it really was the first RPG I had ever seen. Like there were 3 parts of the game, and in the first part, you ran around this wilderness area, and you were trying to get enough treasure and money and all of that to then go to the town, which was the second part, and buy lots of supplies and mercenaries, and then you go into the dragon's lair, which is the third part, to fight and defeat the dragon. And since I was a kid, I very rarely won, but like that whole cycle was just fascinating. And that was really my introduction to RPGs.
That is really cool. Look at that. Dragon Stomper came out. Release date was 1982 or early 1983. So I was 1 years old when this game came out.
Yes, yes. And I was older than that, but I was
Not
quite
much older.
still, yeah, still very much a kid when I was playing that.
That's
But
interesting.
it was fascinating.
Did Stephen Lundrum do
Uh,
anything else? I wonder. Let's take a look. Man,
I don't know.
that was a fun time, I think, to be a game developer. I mean, there's no rules really. He did quite a bit. He worked on Way of the
Oh
Warrior for
yeah.
3DO. Mrs.
Yeah.
Pac-Man. Yeah, he was kind of in the pocket for a good decade there. It seems decade plus before
Yep.
he retired, or went on to do other things.
Oh, he did Temple of Apshai too. Oh, that's really interesting. Oh, a redesign.
Oh, it was a
That was
redesign.
another very early like dungeon crawler RPG that I also played and enjoyed.
That is really cool. You want to take a look at some? Let's see if we can find some of this gameplay for Dragon Stomper on YouTube. We can take a quick look at it before we head back to Pool of
Sure.
Radiance. But yeah, let's.
There's actually a video. There's a video on it that I watched where it talks all about like it kind of takes you through the game. Um, they did one for there was another D&D. It was actually the first D&D video game that was like part of the same series, and they talked about this and that D&D game as like the first RPGs. And yes, you are a dot.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So interesting. Can I ask? You said that you kind of found a group of friends. Sounds very Stranger Things. It's the '80s. You're all young kids, and
Yep.
you discover this tabletop role playing game system called Dungeons and Dragons. Who in the group like discovered this game? Was it you or was it someone else from your group of friends in middle school?
It was me. So I don't remember how I think I was in a bookstore and I saw D&D books and I was just like I think my mother came and like found me there an hour later and I was still staring at D&D books. Um, and I think maybe my uncle had had a set or something that I was also looking at home that he wasn't using anymore.
Oh,
And
interesting.
then we bought the red box. So the red box was the first, and my aunt and I played when I was very young. And then I sort of introduced some of my friends to it, and we were just playing ever since.
Yeah, Redbox D&D. So your uncle actually had some role playing game supplements at home at the time.
He had oh gosh, he had the purple box, which was like earlier than this. This was the first one I owned.
Oh wow.
But then he had the purple box, which was I don't exactly know when that came out,
So if your
but
uncle hadn't, well, no, you actually discovered Dungeons and Dragons in the store, so you wouldn't have missed Dungeons and Dragons if, your uncle didn't have that purple box supplement sitting at home.
yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
I saw it in I had been seeing it in stores, and every time I saw it, I would like, oh, it's those cool books. It's like Fiend Folio. I very specifically remember sitting down and being absolutely fascinated by like the Githyanki and all the weird stuff in it.
Yeah, the Fiend Folio just kind of came out of nowhere. It was
Yep.
designed
Yep.
by some TSR people in the UK, from what I understand. That's the
Yep.
history of the Fiend
Yep.
Folio. Tome of
Yeah.
creatures
I
malevolent and
actually
benign.
yes, I remember not knowing what those words meant when I first when I first was a little kid looking at it. But I still have that actually that book on my shelf right over there. I can see it from here.
That's awesome. Yeah, we have a great friend of the Wyvern's Lair here in the live stream chat, Badoof, saying purple box equals basic D&D. In early 80s. Got you, purple box D&D. Let's take a look at this. Let's see if we can. This is another fun
Yeah.
thing about a stream like this is we can go. There we go. Is this
Yep,
what?
there it is.
That's the one your uncle
That's
had.
the one on the left. I eventually got it too, so I actually have that. I have that.
Oh, it's
Might
a
even be up here
collector's
somewhere.
item.
Well, I used it a good bit, so I don't know if it still
Oh,
qualifies as a collector's item, but it's at least not smashed like my red box is. Like that thing is just flat.
yeah. The
Um,
poor red box never made it out of too many
no,
people's
no.
collections. I think.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I still have it. I have the books, but it's not something anyone's gonna, unless they're really desperate. It's not something anyone's gonna want.
So that was a long period of time, from 9 years old up to 17. And was it basically the same group of friends that you were dungeon mastering for, or would you hand
Yeah.
off the baton and someone else would dungeon master, or really you had the duties of being the
Um,
primary storyteller?
Occasionally somebody else would do it, but mostly it was me. Um, it was very Stranger Things. Like if you know how that little group of friends was kind of hanging out together for many years and playing
Hmm.
D&D together for it was very much like that. Um, and yeah, I mean, occasionally other people would kind of come in, and we had some other kind of like guest people, and then maybe someone would move away or something. But that core four people were in it throughout all of that time. And actually, I did a tribute to them
You did.
in Wasteland 3.
Oh
If
wow.
if you let's see, well, if you side with, um, I think the marshals there's like a nightclub, and if you chase the gangsters out of the nightclub, then like a bunch of kids appear there later. And if you go to the upstairs area, there's some kids playing Robots and Rangers. Obviously, that's D&D. And the kids are all like, their names are a little bit off what our real names were, but the kids up there are all like my friends from high school.
Oh, that's
Uh,
phenomenal.
as well as my aunt. I put her in there too. Uh, and a lot of people thought, because the names were like, well, it's Jorge, me, Christopher, Brian, and I think it's just Dan. Well, those are my friends' names, but a lot of people thought those were actually, they thought they were the people from In Exile, because Chris at In Exile is the president of In Exile, and Brian Fargo, and we had a guy on the team named Dan. So that's what people thought it was, but it was actually me and my group of friends.
That's amazing. That is a great bit of trivia, for you to share with us on the channel. Speaking of Wasteland 3, let's take a look at the trailer for that, since that was your last sort of big published title. There's been exciting things going on at your studio, Digimancy, over the years, which we can talk about. And I've kept the NDA that I signed, nice and airtight. So,
Yep.
There has
Well, I mean,
been
the one thing. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Wyvern. Please go ahead.
doxed again. It's okay.
Uh,
No, please go ahead. What were you saying?
so, the one thing I can say about what's been happening at Digimancy is we've basically been, for the last, whatever it's been, 2 or 3 years. I mean, a lot of that time we've been trying to get funding, and I think a lot of people don't realize how time consuming that can be, especially in the current environment. So
Yeah.
we do have our prototype going in the background that we're working on, but a lot of what we've been doing is various efforts to try to get funding to make this game, and just because of we've had a lot of interest because of the situation in the industry right now. It's just not a lot of people giving money to make games, and so it's been a challenge, as you know.
Yeah, but it's been a challenge that I think that you and the owners and the team over at Digimancy will meet. And I know for a fact that there has been some great sort of opportunities at Digimancy over the years, and there will be again. And I think that I think the promise there is how you've been able to really establish new settings, new worlds that have fascinated millions of players over the years, whether you're talking about Mask of the Betrayer or, your most recent game, published game, Wasteland 3.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the trailer for Wasteland 3, since we're kind of doing a bit of that back and forth as we go here. It's a really cool game,
Sure.
and because it was sort of the last public thing you touched, I'd love to remind people of just what you are capable of as a game developer. So we're gonna go.
It's hilarious because it looks a little different than Dragon Stomper.
It does.
Hello, everyone out there in the wasteland. On today's show, I want to talk to you about our world.
I must have dreamed 1,000 dreams.
The world you see now is a very scary place.
Haunted by a million screams.
Democracy, equality, and freedom all died when the bombs fell,
I still
and we've been walking on their ashes ever since.
burning into the night.
Especially here in Colorado.
There's too many men, too many people making too many problems.
The three children of our patriarch are even more ruthless than he is.
Much love to go around.
We live in a society built on violence,
Can't you see this is the land of confusion?
but It wasn't always like this. Over 100 years ago, everything was different. I believe we can get back there if we fight this oppression. If we are fearless against the evils of the world, we can be everything we were in 1987.
This is the world we live in. This is the world we
That's our show for the day. Tune in tomorrow, and we're going to talk about the dangers of cannibalism.
Can't you see this is the land of confusion?
It's a great gameplay trailer, and thank you again for just showing how parts of your biography can follow you on to some of these great games that you've worked on. And so, returning back to that shout out to those formative friendships you had that started you on the path towards game development as a young kid. Do you have any memories of some of like, is there one particular adventure that sort of still stands out in your mind that you talk about with these childhood friends whenever you get together or catch up? There's usually that one adventure that, a tabletop group will remember for years, after the dice have stopped rolling. I'm wondering if you have something like that you might be able to share with us from those days of yours.
I actually am mostly out of touch with them now, sadly. One of them I still talk to occasionally. I don't know if there's a single adventure. Like, most of it was stuff that I wrote myself, and it was, a lot of it was kind of it was a wacky mix of like serious and completely ridiculous. With a number of lots of inside jokes and things too, because we all went to high school together. And we all knew each other. Yeah, I don't know if there's any one thing. It was just a lot of bits and pieces that people will, or that in the past, years ago when I used to talk to them more, that they would bring up, and little one-liners here and there, and crazy characters and moments when wacky things would happen. But yeah, I don't know that there's any like one. I'd have to think about that if there's any specific one thing.
Gotcha.
Like, I know there was one adventure we went through a couple times that was. Did you ever see the classic Flash Gordon movie from like 1980 or something?
I don't know if I did.
The soundtrack was by Queen. It was just called Flash Gordon, but it was this very memorable and silly soundtrack. But there was one adventure that just sort of like veered off into that land almost. Like, it wasn't actually Flash Gordon, but it had that like vibe to it. And I know they talked about that a lot. So it was a very chaotic world that that I created for them. Pretty much anything could happen, but it was still sort of rooted in your standard like Forgotten Realms D&D kind of thing, but with lots of wacky stuff added in.
That's so interesting for me to hear, because that's something that I actually kind of noticed playing the Infinity Engine Baldur's Gate games, growing up, was you actually kind of had that exact mix that you described that you were providing your players as a dungeon master, where you had, a certain amount of grittiness to the setting in Baldur's Gate. You had those sort of grim stakes of being hunted by, this terrifying figure, Savarok, and him having, killed your foster father in front of your eyes. So it sets sort of like a really kind of macabre, plot line for the game. But around the world, you have a lot of like, zaniness. You have a lot of silliness amongst the NPCs that you meet. A lot of really corny jokes. that the writers sort of brought into those Baldur's Gate games, and I think it kind of speaks to an era of the hobby when that was, I think, a little bit more prevalent. I don't know about
Yeah.
today. I certainly don't have an insight into how tabletops are being run throughout the U.S., but it just seems like that was sort of like a standard where you had a little bit of I don't know, slapstick humor with your
Absolutely.
tabletop experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think the perfect example, um, Minsk and Boo, right? Like,
Right.
amidst all this serious stuff, you've got like this guy who has a pet space hamster,
Giant space
is
hamster.
giant space hamster. We have exactly like that. We know a space hamster, but it was that same kind of just like wacky stuff intermixed with crazy violent things and serious plot lines here and there. So it was very much that era, which is not really what we do anymore. Like most of the games I've worked on, there is sometimes humor in them, as you can see from Wasteland 3,
Mm-hmm.
but it tends to be more. I guess we try to approach more what good TV and film might do. And certainly there's still room for humor in it, but we try to approach that higher level of quality, and that's probably what I'm more interested in nowadays than the completely wacky stuff. But I think I'm probably still capable of the wacky stuff. It's just that I aim for something a little bit higher quality nowadays.
Got you. Not that wacky can't be golden in of itself. By the way, we are getting questions from the live stream chat, and I just want to encourage everyone who is present here. If you do have questions for George, now is the opportunity to put them forward. So we have Velguin here saying, "What's George's favorite Easter egg in Mask of the Betrayer?"
Oh man, that's interesting. I don't even think there that many Easter eggs in, or at least not ones that I put in. We had
George, just so you know, you seem to be cutting in and out over the course of this stream.
Oh crap! Really?
Yeah, so it almost sounds like you're like swaying away from your microphone and then coming back in. I don't know what
well,
that
that's
could
not
be.
good. I will try to lean. I'll try to lean closer. It could also be my internet, which does happen sometimes.
Gotcha.
Out here in the wilds of Ohio.
Gotcha.
So we had a designer on Mask named Tony Evans, who really loved like Easter eggs and puns and stuff like that. So I think he put a whole bunch of different things in, but I don't remember them real well anymore. So yeah, you know what? I would have to go away and think about that. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that was a great Easter egg in that game.
Suzanne SF, I just want to shout you out. Thank you so much for dropping by the channel. Always good to see you here, my old friend. We got another question from Bidoof here saying, also regarding Mask of the Betrayer, can George describe what the process was like creating a follow-up adventure for a story that literally did Rocks Fall, Everyone Dies ending? Oh my goodness, that ruined the official campaign for me, Bidoof. Is that what happens at the end?
Weiss, oh god damn it, Wyvern.
Who is this Weiss character you're talking about?
I don't know who he is. I must just have him on the brain. So, what I missed the last part of what you were saying because it actually cut out a little.
Sure. All right. So this is the question we got from Bidoof. Also regarding the Mask of the Betrayer, can George describe what the process was like creating a follow-up adventure for a story that literally did the Rocks Fall, Everyone Dies ending?
Yes. Well, most of the team, or at least the people who ended up on Mask of the Betrayer, were fairly not excited about that ending. So we were very, very happy to find a way to undo that ending and take the player off someplace else. It also gave us a really nice opportunity because it was just like the whole place collapses and who knows what happened to your character. Well, that is a perfect opportunity to take the player someplace else because we were all pretty tired of the Sword Coast, and we wanted to go somewhere interesting and different that we could essentially create ourselves from scratch, and had never been seen in a D&D video game before. So we were just like, well, when the place collapsed, these things came and took you away, and the companions that we liked survived, and the companions that we didn't like did not survive. So it was kind of an annoying ending to that game from our perspective, but at the same time, it gave us a chance to kind of do whatever we wanted in the next one.
That's a great answer. Thank you, George. Let's see, Garrus. So George here is not in fact that old. He did not work on the Gold Box games. He may have seen them growing up, but he certainly didn't work on them.
I'm not quite as old as that.
Yeah, that belongs to a different generation of developers who I certainly would absolutely love to have on this channel at some point. George, however, has worked on games like, as he's saying, Mask of the Betrayer here, Fallout New Vegas, Torment, Tides of Numenera, Pillars of Eternity, and Wasteland 3. So if you played any of those games, including some MMORPGs, which we haven't even mentioned, but we'll eventually get around to at some point during this interview with George, this is the right place for it. So Haxor says puns. Yes, one person's pun is another person's punishment. Oh gosh, Linthal. Linthal, my great friend. He and Bidoof are such a great part of this community here. George, so there you are, 17 years old, waving goodbye to the Stranger Things crowd from high school, those friends that you, and honestly, I think it's really heartwarming that even though they may not even know you paid tribute to them in Wasteland 3, you found an opportunity to commemorate that chapter of your life and those friendships that led you into your career. So you're going on to college at this point, and I know that you actually got your undergraduate in psychology. You got a psychology degree, correct?
Yep.
And so what was your thinking at the time? Did you think that games were kind of just sort of out of reach for you as a career, or was that something that you were looking at but didn't understand how to approach or, go to school for? Like, put us in your shoes in college at this point. You have all your Dungeons and Dragons books, at home, and there you are in college, like, potentially becoming, a clinical psychologist, or gosh knows where your career may have been going at that point. But yeah, take us to George in college and what you were hoping to pursue.
Yeah, I mean, at that time, so this is the 90s, I didn't even know that you could get a job really making video games. I mean, I knew that there obviously had to be some way that people were doing it, but the video game industry was much, much smaller back then. There were no design programs. Like, there was no such thing as going to school to become a video game designer.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a programmer, and that is not really, like, I'm not particularly good at that kind of thing. I know enough to understand what's going on, but I'm not somebody who's going to be like a great like computer engineer type person. So that wasn't really a path that I was going to take. And so I just really didn't even occur to me that was something I could do. It was just like, well, what am I going to do with my life? And I just sort of figured, well, at most, maybe I'll continue playing D&D on the side,
mm-hmm.
or write fantasy novels one day or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it was just like, well, psychology is really interesting. I'm going to go do that. And I think for quite a few years, I was very much into the idea of becoming a scientist. Because I wasn't going to psychology. I wasn't going to school in psychology to become a psychologist. I was going to get a PhD and become a researcher. Mm-hmm. And maybe become a professor. So that's what I was doing, and I got into a PhD program after college. But fortunately or unfortunately, I picked an area of psychology that I don't think was a good fit for me. So I think if I had been smarter and had picked an area that had been better for me, I wouldn't be making games right now.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, after a few years of that, I got my master's degree, and I was like, I really don't enjoy doing this. And so then it was just sort of like one of these, well, what am I going to do with my life now?
Hmm.
And the first thing that came up was, well, what things did I love doing? What things have I loved doing over the years? And obviously coming up with D&D campaigns and being a DM and making. And actually, there was even a game. This had to have been the late '80s as well, but there was a game called Adventure Construction Set where you could make sort of Ultima style, like classic Ultima, like Ultima 4, Ultima 5 style games. And I did a ton of that. So and loved it. So that was also something. Oh, yep, that's it. All right. And yes, look for the crappy, very few color version of it, and that's the one I had. Yes, that's it. So yeah, I just I thought back to all of that stuff, and I was like, hey, is it possible to get a job doing that? And it turned out that it was.
Yeah, actually, that's really interesting that you brought up Adventure Construction Set, because my ears perked up when you were talking to Matt a couple of years ago about sort of your formative years as a game developer. You mentioned this basically as it reads on the label, it's a construction set for I guess simple computer role playing games from that era. Like the early
Yeah.
Ultima games and what have you. What age do you discover the Adventure Construction Set? And when were you tooling around with it?
I think it was, gosh, so like 86, 87. So I would have been in like sixth grade, something like that.
It's actually a pretty, looking at this, it kind of reminds me of a lot of, early SSI and I don't even know if, what's his face? The guy behind the Ultimate games. Refresh my memory.
Oh, Garriott?
Richard Garriott. There we go.
Yeah.
It looks very reminiscent of those games. It looks like a powerful tool for the time,
Yeah, no, and like I loved the Ultima games in that time period. I think that was probably my favorite. Like I did play Wizardry, and I played Might and Magic, and I played Bard's Tale, but the games that I loved the most were the Ultima series, like 4 and 5 especially. I just played the heck out of those, and then it was like, oh my God, there's this tool that allows you to make your own. And so I did, and then I forced those friends that I mentioned who played D&D with me. I was like, haha, you're going to play these games. So they were like they were like my testers, and I would sit there watching them as they played the game, and I'd look at what they did and sort of see how they interacted with it. And it taught me a lot. Like it was like, oh, okay, I didn't expect them to do that. Oh, they did that. They did something that that I hadn't had a plan for. Oh, I better watch for that next time. So it was kind of like a let's play.
I'm pausing it right here. Like, if you want to learn how to be a narrative designer for, computer games, like this, still right over here, captures all the big beats. Design a world map, build dungeons, mansions, and plants,
Yeah.
add treasures, traps, and creatures, place randomly appearing beasts, give hints and written puzzles, create new treasures and weaponry, design magical items and spells, construct tricks and obstacles, enter your favorite creatures, play music, and use the sound effects. What is missing here is narrative branching, but for kind of like for a primer on large elements of narrative design for games. This definitely is a good sort of training tool for sure.
Yeah. No, and I mean it basically teaches you, and then you're debugging it too, and you're playing back through your game and having to do the QA on it. So it basically teaches you how to be both a designer, not so much the systems design, but like the content design and the narrative designer, and then some other things too. You could do some art, some basic art and sound with it. So yeah, it was really good experience.
And so there you were. You figured you didn't want to pursue your psychology degree any further, and then you had those memories of dungeon mastering for your friends, work with the Adventure Construction Set, and then how did you take that sort of desire to practice something that you enjoyed and apply it towards like a paying career?
So I started out in the industry as a writer. Like I had done, I had always done some writing on the side, and so I had some writing samples to send people. And when I was just like, I basically spent like 9 months just applying because you could do this
Nine
back then. I
nine
was just like
months, huh? That's how
like
long
nine
it
months
took.
applying
Hmm.
to all of the game companies that existed at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at some point, one of the people, the content lead at Earth and Beyond, was like, "Oh, here, send me a writing sample," and it was more of like an informational interview. He wasn't really looking for a writer, but he liked the writing sample that I sent. Um, and then his writer quit like a month later, and he was like, "Oh my God, I need a writer. Do you want to come out to Las Vegas right now?" And so I said, "Yes, I will do that." And that was pretty much it.
You know, what's interesting for me to hear is that, obviously, here we are in 2024. The video game industry has come a long way. It's, a major part of, yeah, it's a major industry. It rivals Hollywood in terms of, the
Yeah.
revenue that these games can generate. And it's grown much significantly bigger than when you were first taking your steps towards a career in the game industry. But even back then, it took you almost a year to even get someone to sort of pick up the phone and
Yes.
so it just goes to show, even back then, it really was an exercise in perseverance, and patience, and arguably hard work, because you had to have something to provide these prospective employers. And the samples that you were sending them, could you describe a little bit more about what initial sort of writing samples you had that you were sending out? I'm curious as to what it was that you were sending out to attract the interest of prospective game studios at the time.
So what I sent then would not work now. So I had basically it was I had written the um, first chapters of what at the time I had thought of as a novel, and it was fantasy, but it was sort of satirical fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
and it was I mean it was I think for the experience I had at the time it was best work that I could have shown. And I think I gave him a like the first chapter, basically, which was engaging enough that someone could sit down with it and be like, "Oh yeah, this is interesting. There's an interesting world here, and some fun characters and amusing dialogue." And but it had nothing to do with games. Like it was just literally prose fiction. Um, and at that time, that was enough to get you in the door. It would not be anymore. In fact, like me now owning a company, if someone came and was like, "Hey, check out this prose fiction I wrote. I want to be a writer for you guys," I would be like, "Nope," because because like now you have to cut, well, at least for like what we do, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure this is the same in a lot of other genres, but like
Mm-hmm.
for what we do, you've got to be able to come in, hit the ground running, writing branching dialogue, and be competent at it. Like we don't have the budget or bandwidth to train somebody up and like basically take them through all the fundamentals of how to write branching dialogue, and because there's a lot of skill there that it is required, and not everybody can do it well. So we want somebody to be coming in and have at least done it before, um, and be able to write competently, and know about making games, and preferably come in and have made, even if you haven't had a previous job in the industry, like be able to create something playable in a branching dialogue tool or game tool like Ink or Twine. So the standards are a lot higher
Hmm.
now. And even the standards of like being a good writer are a lot higher now, because what passed for good writing in 2001 would not pass muster anymore. Um, So I'm glad I got in when I did, because when I got started, I mean, I wasn't terrible, but I wasn't great. Um, it just that doing a lot of it over the years, and I got much better.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's hard to get in now,
And it
and
was hard to get
takes
in then. 9 months of applying.
yeah,
That's not a short
no,
amount of time. And how did
no, no.
how did you keep like those that's a long stretch of time. How did you keep motivated to keep on sending out your writing samples to these studios?
Um, that's a good question. I guess I was just stubborn. Like there wasn't really anything else I particularly wanted to do. At the time, I really didn't want to go back to school. Um, there wasn't there wasn't any other career that was sufficiently interesting to me. Um, and it was basically just like, I mean, to be honest, it was like just like burning the ships behind me, and there was nowhere else for me to go. And it was like, well, I'm gonna have to make this work, or or I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself. And so I just kept at it uh, until something worked out.
George, we have a couple of more questions for you in the live stream chat. So I'm keeping track of the live stream chat. Thank you all for being here. Colossus Rex, my good friend, hello to you too. Again, we have a question from Wellwind here saying, did George get the chance to work closely with Tim Kaine?
I did not ever work closely with him. I did coexist at Obsidian with him briefly. So there was a period of time where I was working on Dungeon Siege 3 and then a project called North Carolina that was Josh's game that got canceled ultimately. And at that time, Tim was on South Park, I think.
Let's stick of truth.
And then Tim and I both worked on Pillars of Eternity, but I was remote by that point, so we weren't in the same place. So no, I do know Tim. I talk to him sometimes, but we've never actually worked directly together on a project.
Got you. Thank you. You were remote very early then. Pillars of Eternity was in the, gosh, the mid 2000s. 2010, sorry. Yeah. Like the Kickstarter.
2012.
Yeah.
2012 was
2012.
was when the Kickstarter happened.
Right.
So yeah, I started remote in 2012. I did go back on site at an Exile. So like in 2012 and 2013, I was remote. And then I went back to California in 2013, and I was there for quite a while.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for that answer. We got another good question from Badu saying, was George ever drawn to Eastern role-playing games like Phantasy Star, Final Fantasy, or Dragon Quest?
So not too much. Like I've tried those games, but there's at least the ones that I've played. There's two issues. One is most of those games are very linear. And that has never really appealed to me. Like the thing that is interesting and different to me about video games is the fact that you can branch the dialogue and you can branch the story and you can have different stories and different things happening based upon players' choices. Like it's essentially a collaborative story between the player and the designers of the video game, much like D&D back in the day. And that was what really always drew me to this medium. So a lot of Eastern RPGs don't do that. They're just like you're basically playing the action sequences and then you're watching cutscenes, and that's just not particularly appealing to me. Mm-hmm. And then there were also, I don't know if this is as much the case now, but a lot of the games that I played, there's a lot of grinding, and I don't like that. Not fun for me. I prefer every encounter and combat to be meaningful, and not just sort of like I have to kill a bunch of stuff that's respawning so I can get XP so I can do the next thing. I never found that fun, and now I just don't have enough hours in the day to do that.
Yeah, no, you make a great point, and I think that goes to kind of what some of the most popular computer role playing games kind of tapped into. Like again, it's a big C, and there's all kinds of different kinds of role playing games out there. But certainly, in your lineage, from BioWare to Black Isle, Obsidian, and in Exile, there's this idea of handcrafted environments with choice and consequence. For the most part, you didn't see much of that in Baldur's Gate. There was some, the early Baldur's Gate games. You'd certainly had branching dialogue in those titles. But yeah, no, I can understand your preference for sort of the Western tradition of computer role-playing games here. Haxler has a good question, saying, so when writing for branching dialogue, does doing things like acting or improv help? It seems like theater writing might somewhat apply here.
Yes, absolutely. So I have personally never studied acting, but I do know writers who have, and it can help a lot. I think for my version of it was basically being a DM, because that's essentially an exercise in improv, and it helps a lot. And thinking, being able to think of the things that the player might want to do or say, is tremendously useful in writing branching stories and branching dialogues.
Yeah, that's a great answer. It's been such a long time since I've kind of led a table as a dungeon master. And I think back to the agility that I had when, I was maybe a kid around the same age you were when you were running Dungeons and Dragons games for your friends. And I kind of just missed that agility of mind.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
much less footloose now that I'm in my 40s. Than in my younger years. Adventurers, please join me in welcoming Sesame Street Fighter, our great friend from Trinidad, with a question here saying, hey, George, what's your favorite Dungeons & Dragons monster? That's a cool question.
Favorite Dungeons and Dragons monster?
Yes.
Oh, wow. There's so many great ones. Well, I do love the gelatinous cube.
That's always a fun one.
I do love the gibbering mouther. Gosh, what else?
Hold on.
I know there's
the gibbering Mouser? Gibbering Mouser, you said?
Gibbering mouther.
Mouther. Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that. I'm
Yeah,
looking it up on online here. Oh, it's horrific. Look at that thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're fantastic. God, what are some other ones I really love? Out the owl bear. I like the owl bear
yeah, the
quite a
classic.
bit. Oh, and also the Odiug. That's another of my favorites.
The Odiug. That's how you say the name of that creature.
Yes.
Oh my
yes.
goodness.
The Odiug.
Odiug.
The Odiug might be my favorite. I used to have when I was at Turbine and we were working on D&D Online. Ah, yes, there's my friend the Odiug. When I was at Turbine, a couple of so we were doing D&D Online, so some of the WotC people came out and played a tabletop session with us, and they brought a whole bunch of figurines, and then at the end of the thing they were just like, okay guys, take the figurines, they're all yours. And I was like, I grabbed the Odiug. That was the first thing I took, and I still have that Odiug.
That's awesome. I didn't know that you worked on Dungeons & Dragons Online.
Yep, long time ago.
Yeah. You actually kind of started your career in the MMORPG space with Earth and Beyond.
I did.
Yeah.
Mainly just because that's the people who gave me a job. I wasn't a huge MMO player before I started doing that. What I really wanted to get into, like always, was the Infinity Engine games, which is why when it was like, oh, there's an opportunity to apply at Obsidian, I was like, yes, please, I'm going to do that.
And so when you applied to Obsidian, what year was this, and what game credits do you have when you applied to Obsidian?
Okay, let's see. So when I applied to Obsidian, that would have been 2005. So at that point, I had worked on Earth and Beyond, Lord of the Rings Online, and D&D Online. I think that's it. And I had been like the main story person on Lord of the Rings Online. So I had been doing a lot of writing. I'd been doing area design. And so I had good like narrative design. They didn't call it that back then, but that's essentially what it was. I had good narrative design experience, and that's essentially what they were looking for, was like an area designer who could write. And I actually interviewed for a different project than what I ended up on. I interviewed for a project called Dwarfs, which was actually Kevin Saunders was running that project. That was how I met Kevin Saunders.
Okay.
And the writer on it was Brian Mitsoda, who is of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines.
Right.
And they needed another writer, or writer slash designer. And actually, I wasn't the best fit for that based upon what they needed. But someone else sat in on the interview, and that was Ferret Bodwin, who unfortunately died last year.
And my condolences.
He was a really nice guy. But Ferret was the lead designer on Neverwinter Nights 2, and I guess he needed somebody else. And so after my interviews and stuff were over, he went to Avalon and was like, hey, can we hire this guy? Because he loves D&D, and he would be a good fit for this project. So then I ended up getting hired for Neverwinter Nights 2 instead of Dwarfs.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And did Dwarfs ever see the light of day?
Did what?
Dwarfs ever see the light of day? I don't recall that title.
No, it didn't. So Dwarfs was, weirdly enough, Dwarfs was like a dark prequel to Snow White. Like what Brian Mitsoda wrote for it, and the characters, and like the setup was like super dark, and it was a really cool beginning. I think it actually would have been a really cool game, but Disney canceled it for some reason, and it just never. I think they worked on it for like a year, maybe, or a year and a half, or something. I don't know, and then it got canned. So it was actually good that I worked on Neverwinter Nights 2. But yeah, that was the first thing I worked on for Obsidian.
That's very cool.
And then
I think it also shows what your story tells me is be open to not necessarily, like we all kind of like have our preferences, right, when it comes to work. You had a passion for single player computer role playing games. For instance, you were inspired by the Infinity Engine games from, BioWare and Black Isle as a young man.
Yep.
But you could only get a job initially in sort of a different genre space, the MMORPGs. But you took it and you did the best you could with it. And I got to remind people, Lord of the Rings Online was a huge title for the time. I mean, you're talking about the early 2000s. This is just after Peter Jackson's trilogy had come out. Like, Lord of the Rings fever had never been greater at that period in time. So you were actually working on a really high-stakes, big-budget MMORPG title, which, in fact, continues to chug along today.
That is true. We did kind of get blown out of the water by World of Warcraft.
Everyone did.
Because when we first started working on it, World of Warcraft hadn't come out, so it was our competition was like EverQuest and what else was out at the time? Dark Age of Camelot, that kind of thing. City of Heroes, but
oh my god!
Then World of Warcraft.
We got a big moment happening here.
Oh, what's going on? A large. Oh, geez.
You want to read this for us? You go ahead and read this narration text for us, George.
Sure. Off in the distance, you see a large dragon flying through the air. As you watch, he swoops down behind a mountain, disappears.
Ooh, should we chase after it, George? What do you think?
Oh, of course.
Okay, we'll do that.
With your 43 and 46 hit points. Let's see what happens.
So you hike through the mountains. A large dragon flies above you. It circles, then swoops down and lands in front of a cave. It disappears into a cave. We already know that because it landed in front of that cave. What will you do? We're going to ignore the cave. Just kidding. Of course we're going to enter the cave.
Yep.
Got to enter the cave. All right.
I don't even remember this from Pool of Radiance.
You want to go ahead and read this?
Magic Mouth.
You want to read this text for us?
What was that?
You want to read this text for us?
Oh, sure. As you are entering the cave, a magic mouth appears on one of the walls. In a booming voice, it says, "Who enters the hall of Diogenes? Speak now and declare your intent."
You hit that name far better than I would have.
Diogenes?
State name and intent. All right. What will you say is your reason for being here? Ooh, you get to.
Oh, you can't.
You get to choose this, George. So we have Dragon's Cave, ask Dragon for advice, challenge evil leader of Old Flan, pledge party to Dragon's service, or offer a gift.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. It depends how much you care about this playthrough.
It's the whole point is to have friends like you and, you know, peers that I want to talk to from TSR shape the play. So whatever you want to do, George.
Well, I mean, I want to see what happens if you pledge party to Dragon Service.
Let's do that. Okay.
You hear a great flapping sound. A strong whoosh of air comes down upon the adventurers. A large silver dragon. Okay,
Oh.
so I thought we were pledging to like a red dragon.
Me too.
Stands before you in a booming voice. It says, "Oh, cool. I accept your pledge. For your first duty, I command you to recover a powerful magical bottle from a kobold settlement in the hills far to the east. Then return to me, and I shall give you another task." Well, awesome.
Oh, that is really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, after speaking, the dragon flies through an opening in the ceiling of the cave. You exit the cave to continue your quest. Now, I'm looking forward to continuing my quest here in Pool of Radiance, but I need to be cognizant of George's time. He's leading very long hours for Digimancy, and these are important days. So as much as I would like to continue to venture through Pool of Radiance with you here, George, do you have time for maybe 15 more minutes of questions and adventures in Pool of Radiance before having to go away here?
Yeah, I can do probably 10 or 15 more minutes, but then I'm going to have to bolt.
Well, we have to check out what's in that kobold cave. All right. As you hike through the mountains, you see a large cave. All right, we've already been through that before. So you played this game way back in the past. Do you remember when you played Pool of Radiance?
Oh, wow. No, I was definitely very young. When did it come out? Was it 84?
1988.
Oh, 88.
Feels
okay.
like 84, though.
I think I played it in like 88, 89.
Gotcha. So you played it when it first came out?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep, I got it. There was a computer store, and I would go there every couple weeks and see what was new on the shelf. And I remember seeing this on the shelf, and I immediately grabbed it.
I would have done the same thing. My father had bought me Champions of Krynn when I was a young kid, so that was the first sort of gold box game that I remember playing.
Yep.
We got a good question from Garrus, aka Lizard Flame 1 out there in North Dakota, saying, Digimancy, is that like Necromancer for computers?
Well, it's like basically it's digital mancy, and of course, mancy for necro is the magic and control of death, and so it's the magic of digital things.
There you go. Good answer, George. We also got another question here from Bug Might. I like the boldness of the question. George Ziets, what are your favorite video games?
Well, my favorite of all time remains Baldur's Gate 2. And then you'd have to look back a little for things before Baldur's Gate 2. I would say Sid Meier's Pirates, the original Sid Meier's Pirates. Although the reboot was fun too, and Ultima 5 probably.
That is a great list of games, and they're all very different from each other. Philosopher's Rex, I don't know if you're still here in the live stream chat, but if you are, you should be very happy that Baldur's Gate 2 is George's favorite game of all time. What was it about Baldur's Gate 2 that sort of makes it stand out for you as a game that you hold close to your heart?
So that game was, I think, the first time that I played certainly a D&D game, but maybe any RPG, and it approached the experience I had when I was playing tabletop. Because it wasn't just like, this obviously is fun, and it's got neat little moments, and you're getting to make decisions, and you've got a party, but that game, first of all, you had your companions, and all of them or most of them were interesting personalities. You had relationships with them. It wasn't just romantic relationships, but you had friendships, and you had a sibling, and I actually felt something for those characters, or at least some of them. And then I really loved the area design in those in that game. So you would go to a new area, and it would introduce you really well to what was the conflict, what's happening. There were usually some sort of choices you could make, um, and it all felt like little self-contained D&D modules. Um, and it was the best D&D experience that I had had really up to that point. I had not played Planescape Torment. Planescape Torment is in my list as well.
Mm,
Um, when I played BG2, I had not yet played Planescape Torment,
mm,
and I think Planescape Torment was definitely a better narrative experience. But
mm.
as an overall, all around fun RPG with cool characters, it sort of created the template, in my opinion, for a lot of RPGs that have come since then.
Mm. Did you ever have a chance to meet or talk with David Gator, who was one of the lead writers for Baldur's Gate 2?
I've chatted with him only online. I don't think we've
Mm-hmm.
ever met in person. So like I think we've emailed or we've talked maybe on like um gosh, where have I talked to him? Maybe on like Discord or something, but like we've just chatted digitally, never in person.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, because it's small. It really is a small. Even to this day, it's a very small community of game developers, and I think it's very fortunate that you got to be a part of this sort of era of game development.
Oh
You
yeah.
mentioned names like Josh Sawyer, Chris Avalone, Tim Kaine, Brian
Yep.
Fargo. Arguably, you and these developers have been a really important part of the last 2 decades of the computer role playing game genre. And yeah, I think it's you know extraordinary that I had a chance to work with you and some of your colleagues at Digimancy. And so yeah, I feel very fortunate to have had some proximity to a great history of game development through you, George.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, of course. And this is, and I don't think that I would be attempting this sort of what you call it, this plan of mine to sort of connect with game developers like yourself and tabletop role playing game designers, and really just have a chance to sort of explore what led them to their passion. So I want to thank you for kicking off this series here on my YouTube channel. My plan is to talk to peers like yourself in the months and years to come, with the backdrop of what I see as a very sort of interesting talking piece of a game from Strategic Simulations Incorporated, the early Gold Box games. And I worked with you for 2 years, two of the most memorable years of my life, years that I will treasure. But it was still new for me to sit down with you in the context of this YouTube channel of mine, and just sort of hit the reload button and sort of walk through all those small steps that eventually led you on to your career here. Do we have any final questions from the live stream audience before we go ahead and wrap up this session with George? We're actually going to continue for an hour after George's interview here, just with the game here, Pool of Radiance, as I tried to make some progress in it. But this will be your opportunity, adventurers, to ask any last questions of George before he has to step away. So I'll just give it a few moments for the live stream chat to catch up here. And if there is no further
And
question,
while you're waiting for that, I will say, every time I go back to this game, for the era that it came out, I'm always impressed at how sophisticated it is.
it was so
I
far
mean,
ahead of its time.
they had branching dialogue, they had choices with consequences, they had, reasonable looking maps and combat maps, um, and an actual story. Like this game has a storyline that develops, and things change. It's not just go kill stuff or kill the dragon. There's like a story with plot developments. I forgot actually how sophisticated this game is.
It really, the Gold Box series of games from SSI are an achievement in all kinds of respects for the things that you mentioned, It is, in fact, a really great rendition of the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons rule set. They did a lot to capture all of the most important rules that defined Advanced Dungeons and Dragons at the time. They This is something that you'll note, but in dungeon environments, if you go into a fight, the environment around you reflects the dungeon that you're exploring, which like the walls and stuff, the corridors. And of course, when you're in an overworld setting like this, they procedurally generate the battlefield. So yeah, really a credit to the developers at SSI at the time for what they were able to achieve with the Gold Box games. And we actually have a last question here from my good friend Punish Badu saying, George, what's your favorite evil option in Mask of the Betrayer? I'm partial to one specific way to take care of a werewolf you run into.
Oh, interesting.
Do you remember that?
I actually don't. A werewolf. No, I'm not remembering that. I mean, I think in terms of evil options, we put a lot of really good ones in. I personally, so the choice to devour Oku or not is a fun choice, but if you choose to devour him, I love one of many. So it's sort of like a knock-on effect of that choice, which is one of my favorite things. Creating the companion from like these ghosts who essentially were thrown into an oven. They were all these criminals and things that were just like, many of them alive, just like hurled into this oven, and then they died there, and then their ghosts are still there, and you're creating your companion from that. Like, that's one of my favorite things. Is it's like just such a horrible companion and a horrible thing to do. There's also one with Gan, one of your companions, and there's this girl who was in love with him, and now she's stuck in her dream, and you could do some really awful things to her, which is also kind of fun. And then maybe another one, just because this is one that I always come back to, is sending people to those the Uthraki in the Wells of Larue, and having them basically sending people there to be eaten by them. And there's some rather nice people who you could be like, there's like these sort of berserker trainees who are like, oh, we want to go out into the wild and do something, kind of train. And you're like, oh yeah, how about you go there? And there's like this family in a wagon. You could be like, hey, I think there's a nice place to set up camp over there. And I think actually you might be able to even send that girl who liked Gan to them too, or maybe I might be mixing that up with something else. But you can send some like super innocent people over there, and they get eaten, and then you get a reward for it. So there's lots of fun evil things that you can do in that game.
A lot of nefarious things that are a possibility for players in Mask of the Betrayer. Actually, a little bit of trivia here for you, George. I actually haven't had a chance to play Mask of the Betrayer, but I fully plan on eventually getting to it at some point as a player.
Oh yeah.
It's something that I'm really looking forward to. I'm looking forward to an entire playthrough of the official campaign of Neverwinter Nights 2, only because I get to take that character into Mask of the Betrayer. Because the official campaign, as we both know, is not the most inspired of stories. No offense to the narrative designers that worked on the official campaign. It served its purpose for the base game, and set up the possibility of the vivid world that you have envisioned for Mask of the Betrayer. You were saying?
There's parts of it that I think that I like. The overall story was so I wasn't even there when they wrote it up, so I feel a little bad critiquing it, but it wasn't really trying to do anything earth-shattering. It was basically trying to be just like a fun fantasy story, and so it's not going to win any awards for narrative, but there are moments in the game that I thought worked really well, and there are side quests that I think are really fun. some of which my little team worked on. So I still look back fondly at Neverwinter Nights 2, even if it's not going to win any awards for best narrative of all time.
And going back to you talking about some of your sort of favorite evil options that you and the narrative designers concocted for Mask of the Betrayer. One thing that I think I find very intriguing about how that evil companion you can get, the one of many. I think that's the name of the creature. Is that
yes,
it?
one of many.
One of many.
Yep.
Emerges from the loss of a good companion. I think that's a very for those who haven't sort of been, for those who went into that experience blind. I'm sure they were shocked and pleasantly surprised at what resulted from that choice when they chose to sacrifice this companion Oku, and are suddenly presented with this monstrosity that they now can include in their party. I'm sure that was a great moment for players when Mask of the Betrayer came out, and it's surprises like that really kind of stick in one's memory as a player as you go through good games. I feel.
Yep.
Let's see. Any last questions here? We'll take one final question from Sesame Street Fighter, and then I think we'll have to call it with George here. Sesame asks, any possibility of another Dungeon Siege game?
I don't know. So I certainly don't own that IP. I'm not 100% sure who owns it now. It's probably still Square Enix. So that would be a question for them. But so I think one of the problems with Dungeon Siege 3 was that it wasn't a very true sequel to the Dungeon Siege franchise. Like, say what you will, so some people really enjoyed the game, like in and of itself, but it didn't stick very closely to the Dungeon Siege franchise that had gone before. And I think a lot of the fans of the Dungeon Siege franchise wanted something that grew more out of that franchise, and Dungeon Siege 3 was sort of off in left field doing its own thing. So I think if they were going to do another one, probably it would be better to try to do something that felt more like the original Dungeon Sieges. The only problem there is that game is receding a lot now into the past, and I don't know how many fans are left. Who would be excited about that. So my guess is we probably won't see another Dungeon Siege game, because I just don't think the potential market is big enough. And also the world is not distinct and like weird enough, and there's not really any like characters that stand out as really memorable that people still have in their minds years later. So I think it would be a hard sell for a publisher to make another Dungeon Siege game. Could be wrong. That's my guess.
There you go. George, thank you so much for the characters and the worlds and the quests that you have provided players like myself over the years and the decades. I want to wish you and the rest of the team well at Digimancy, and we all look forward to the next game that has your stamp on it.
You are welcome. This was a lot of fun. Thank you very much, Wyvern.
Thank you for coming by, George. I'll talk to you later.
Problem.
Take care.
Thank you. You too.
All right. That's it, adventurers. Let me go ahead and get sorted out here, and we will continue a little bit more with Pool of Radiance. Let's get some music going here. Get some Doom OST going. There we go. Going straight back to the Doom era here, and continuing with about 40 more minutes of our game here in Pool Radiance. And for the Drakes here who might want to join me live on stream for a quick post discussion, you're welcome to. Just let me know in the live stream chat, and I'll come get you on Discord. But till then, George has, left his stamp on this playthrough with our visit to Dragon Cave and him deciding for us to ally with the Silver Dragon. We're on a quest for him. And by gum, we are going to fulfill this quest. So, we're gonna go ahead and Bidoof says I'll jump on with you, DM. Okay, cool. Meet me in the yawning portal, Bidoof. And I'll come get you. Let me know when you're there. So we're gonna enter the Kobold Caves. You find 2 caves, a small, well-hidden cave, and a larger, more obvious cave. What cave will you enter? We're gonna enter the larger cave. Do you want to leave? No. Alright, Bidoof's here. Let's go get Bidoof. Alright. Boom. Bidoof! My good friend, can you hear me? Hello, hello? I can't hear you, Bidoof. Test 1, test 2. Bidoof? Okay, Bidoof should be able to, I guess he's setting up his microphone. We'll give him a moment. Velwin says, what's the Discord? Velwin, you can find information on how to join my Discord in the description of this video. Bugmite says, shucks, I don't have Do installed on the laptop I'm using. Let's see if Bidoof can fix his mic situation there. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and explore this cave. We could have actually already... I don't know. Maybe we already got the...
Okay.
There we go. Hey, Bidoof.
Oh my god, Discord, I hate you so.
It's good to hear your voice. Thank you so much for being a great part of our discussion with George. I really appreciated the questions you brought to our session together.
No problem.
Of course.
So, I guess I can spill the beans on exactly what the evil choice I was thinking of when I was alluding to in there. So,
Sure.
in Mask of Betrayer, there's like one... It's not really an evil decision of consequence, so I'm not surprised that George didn't remember it offhand, but you can run into a random werewolf in a forest pretty early on. And he does werewolf things. He fights you because he's a jerk. And one of your options that you have, I think it's the chaotic evil option, is you can just choose to flay it alive.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty damn evil option.
Yeah, it's just kind of out of nowhere. You're just reading through the list of options. It's like, yeah, skin this werewolf alive.
That's pretty horrific. It does sound like... Yeah, go ahead.
I think it even describes it as being like specifically you do it slowly.
Oh my goodness.
So great.
I guess Mask had so many evil options. One of the more horrific ones could slip by the memory there, but that is pretty evil, I'd say.
Oh, Mask has some of the more, I think, as far as games go, Mask has some of the most entertaining evil options that I've seen presented in the game, in that they don't really shy away from what you're doing or what you're going to be doing. And a lot of the options that they give you are basic, kind of to speak to what George was talking about. A lot of the options that they give you in Mask of Betrayer to do as an act of evil are the kind of things that you might just offhandedly think about and then be like, oh, there's no way they'll let me do. Oh, no, they do let me.
They absolutely let you do that. Yeah, well, again, George has always really been big, not necessarily on playing an evil character, but on giving players the ability to role play that kind of character if they so, wanted. It's about, the ability to choose, the freedom to choose who you are, and define your own personal story that way.
I'm not surprised that, there's one very particular evil option that is of great story consequence in Mask of the Betrayer that, given that you haven't played the game, I really don't want to talk about too much, but there are two very big ones that are amazingly evil.
I'm looking
And
forward to it.
One of them more or less unlocks the true secret evil ending.
Oh, interesting.
that carries theological ramifications to the Forgotten Realms if you go through with it.
Oh, that's so cool. That is so cool. I really ought to get around to playing Mask of Betrayer. I often will find myself playing the official campaign, and at some point, just not finding myself having the energy to press on. But at some point in this channel's history, we're going to attempt to get through the official campaign, and then get to Mask of Betrayer.
It's such a slog. The official campaign, there's some really interesting bits to it. Bugmite and I were kind of talking about. There's interesting bits like the trial, which comes right at the very end of Act 2, I think, that are really, really good and well executed and everything. But they're kind of really spaced out and not that. And it can be tough to sit through so much of the other stuff to get to the parts that I feel are actually interesting or rewarding.
Gotcha. Bidoof, let me get back to you here. I just want to acknowledge some of the great adventures we have in the live stream chat. We're joined by Gabriel Rodriguez, Knight of the Banhammer, with the dinosaur emojis. So glad you could join us, Gabriel, for the second half of our live stream session of Pool Radiance this evening. We just finished talking to the legendary George Ziets, game developer who I had the pleasure of working for some time, and has worked on some great games. We're also joined by Savalon, saying, I can hear strange voices. Our beloved friend, Drake of the Wyverns Lair, Savalon, joining us all the way out there in Australia. And Velwind saying, are we not continuing on with this series of games after this? Absolutely, we're continuing on, Velwind. We are going for Pool Radiance, Curse of the Azure Bonds, Secret of Silver Blades, and on into the Pool of Darkness. Have no fear. We're going to go straight through all the Goldbox games. You know, Bidoof, you've been encouraging me for some time to return to them, and they're just such fun. They seem to age so well compared to other games of the era, you know?
I mean, the interface is kind of its own special story. You're playing with a lot of tools that take away a lot of the frustration of
Right.
Playing the games raw to the. I think for most modern players, you can't really do this without the Goldbox companion. It's just so aggravating and kind of obtuse to get to a lot of the things that you are normally looking for, wanting specifically out of it.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more, Bidoof. And for those of you who are wondering, this is the webpage for the Goldbox companion. It's basically a must-have tool if you enjoy playing the Goldbox games, or even the Eye of the Beholder series. Yeah?
It includes the Eye of the Beholder series. The other thing is, if you do get the games on Steam, the Goldbox companion is kind of built into it.
That's right. Yes, I think that they have like a dashboard where all that is sort of taken care of for you. So that's an incentive for those of you who enjoy having your games on your Steam library to go get it there. I personally have my GOG games on my on my Goldbox games on my GOG library. But yes, if you want the convenience of having the Goldbox companion right out of the box, go ahead and snap up the Steam version. I'm actually looking for the name of the developer here. There we go. So this is the gentleman who made the Goldbox companions, Jonas at Zorvis.net. Really kind developer. He is responsive over email, so if you have questions or issues with the Goldbox companion, he's happy to assist you. And by all means, send him a few gold coins, because he's done the gaming community that appreciates these games a great service with this tool.
Maybe that's somebody you should also have on one day.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a really good point. Bidoof, how have you been? How have you and your husband Linthal been? I've missed you guys so much since my life went through a bit of a change earlier this year. I'm looking forward. I'm hoping. I'm not so sure when exactly my life will return to the kind of schedule where I can pick up our Baldur's Gate 2 co-op and Rogue Trader co-op, but that's going to happen at some point. When, I can't say, but I just want you to know that I've really missed you both.
Thank you so much, Wyvern, and we of course missed hanging out with you on Thursday, so this is kind of a nice return to form.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything's kind of been topsy-turvy on our end. I think it's kind of beginning to calm down a bit for us as well.
Good.
Hopefully, maybe be appreciated. I'd appreciate no more surprises or anything.
It's been a year, Bidoof. I'm so glad you and Linthal, have persevered through, as you said, topsy-turvy chapter in your own lives.
Yeah. But yeah, just for kind of proving my point, imagine having to take care of these caves without that map system. Right?
Oh, I'd go insane.
Especially that little intersection that right there at the very start where it all kind of comes together.
Yeah, I'd lose my mind.
I think when I played through this as a kid, I'd walk around in a circle for like 30 minutes.
Yeah, I could very well see that happening. What else I could see happening is none other than Gone Soulfire himself, Jacob of the Wyvern's Lair, and our good friend saying, "Woohoo, DM Wyvern, best Go Box streamer ever." Good to have you here, Gone. We're just talking about the old group here, of which you're a big part of.
So one thing I kind of wanted to mention specifically with Pool of Radiance for anybody who may be interested in trying this out.
Let me lower the volume.
And probably has some passing awareness. It's like, oh no, there's level caps on pretty much everybody that's not human. Don't let that discourage you from trying a few of the other races with Pool of Radiance especially. Because the level caps are kind of inconsequential since most of the classes cap out at around the level caps anyways in this game. I think only like the gnome and halfling fighters and the half-elf cleric would for sure potentially hit a dead end. But...
Right, and another thing you brought up, Bidoof, is in a way these games were meant to be played. I think, if you go back to the era and play it as if, you'd picked up the Pool of Radiance, gold box game, and then you would go on and buy the Curse of the Azure Bonds, it was almost expected by the developers that you kind of change your party over time as you played through the series.
Well, specifically with the transfer between this game and Curse of the Azure Bonds,
right.
Because you get Paladin and Ranger in Azure Bonds, which is not here.
That is absolutely correct. Another...
dual...
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Also, dual classic, I think, is actually a thing in Curse of the Azure Bonds. You can't really do it in this game.
Right. Another little fun point of trivia for Pool Radiance that I hope to sort of bring forward in future streams is that there is, in fact, a companion tabletop adventure of the same name, Pool of Radiance, and they were meant to sort of tie into each other as marketing. Well, I guess the intent was to drive players back and forth from the tabletop to the computer role-playing game. So SSI had produced Pools of Radiance, the computer role-playing game, and then TSR had a tabletop supplement of the same name.
Also, there's the official novelization out there.
That I didn't know.
We have the one for we don't have the one for Pool of Radiance, but I know we have the one for Curse of Azure Bonds.
Gotcha. Now that I didn't know. I know Curse of Azure Bonds definitely came out as a novel. I don't think that they had one for Pool of Radiance. But that's actually a really good point that you make, that they did novelize part of the series. So let's go ahead and take advantage of the clue book here. Another fun little artifact of these games is that you kind of wanted to play them with these clue books that came included with the games or were supplementary to them. So we're here in the Cobalt Caves. Let's look them up. I think it's page 39.
I remember it being like a huge part of the fun for me as a kid with this game is you would be given some like the journal entry something or like some, and it kind of felt like you were going through and really solving a mystery or deciphering some, especially with how the save files worked in this game, where you had to basically input a code, and you had the code wheel for it and everything. 'Cause
Yeah.
the,
Yeah. I remember using that code wheel for Champions of Kryn. Did you play Pool Radiance in Era when it came out, Bidoof? Or
I mean, this game's when did Pool Radiance come out? I could tell you when it came out. I was not playing it. I started.
yeah.
I started playing this. Yeah, this game came out in '88. I was born in '88.
Okay, yeah. No way you were playing it in Era.
Yeah, I was not playing this game at 3 months old. No, I was playing this. I started playing this game when I was like 9 or 10. We had a home computer. It was an old home computer by the standards of the time, because basically I would just get all the hand-me-down computers that my uncle had from work.
Oh, that's really cool.
So this was like one of the games that a neighbor of ours had, and it could actually run on my computer too. So he gave me a copy, and I played it all the time when I was at home.
Interesting. So you played it around the same age George and I would have been playing this game, but just later on in your life.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That's really cool. I didn't know that about your own biography and journey into your own love for, role-playing games and such. So I'm taking a look at the clue book here, Bidoof, and it looks like the Cobalt Caves doesn't actually lead us to whatever treasure the Silver Dragon sent us out on a quest for. So I'm wondering where we're actually meant to go. Let me see if there's an entry for the for the Dragon Cave. Let's see.
I will say that George has put you on a bit of an interesting path with this decision.
Oh, really? Interesting. So I don't see an entry for the Dragon Cave here. Unless I'm missing it. Oh, there we go. Western Wilderness, Silver Dragon's Den. So page 21. Let's go down to page 21. And thank you all, everyone who's still with us here in the live stream. Appreciate you being here. Sesame Street Fighter, Bug Might, Savalon, Gabriel Rodriguez, of course, Bidoo's husband, Haxor91. Haxor, by the way, I actually have an idea of brewing in the background that I might need your help with. So I plan to reach out to you in a couple of weeks when I have a better idea of what I'd like to attempt. Gone Soulfire, thank you all for being here with myself and Punish Bidoof as we sort of reflect back on our conversation with George Ziets. And thank you for jumping in. It's always good to have some company, Bidoof, when I'm playing these games. All right, so we're
sure
here.
Thing. So
Go ahead.
What he said, we killed off the characters we liked, we killed off the characters we didn't like for Basket of Betrayal. I was like, yeah, you could really feel that with how the fates of all those characters were decided. Just say from how they're described on what happens to them, it's very apparent that, oh no, you guys just did not like this character.
So we have an entry for the Western Wilderness. Let's see. Let me go. I guess I haven't shared my screen in channel with you. Would you want to read some of this, Bidoof? It's actually quite a bit. Let me go ahead and read some of it for us. I'll let you read the Silver Dragon's Den, okay? The Western Wilderness contains the Silver Dragon's Den, the Buccaneers' base, and the outpost of Zental Keep, along with any number of layers and random encounters. The Silver Dragon's Den is located in the Dragon's Den Pass. The Silver Dragon never comes up as a mission, but is mentioned in a tavern tale. The Buccaneers' base is at, such and such coordinates, but only shows up after the party has received the commission to rescue the councilman's son. Ah, that's where he is. Okay, that's good to know. I was wondering where he was. The outpost of Zental Keep is at such and such, but can only be entered after the parties receive the commission to deliver the diplomatic papers. I'm actually really glad we read this. Random encounters in the Western Wilderness include quicklings, wild boars, the giant mantis, tigers, thrycreen, ankegs, centaurs, giant snakes, and Zentaran patrols, thieves, and buccaneers. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you, Bidoof, so you can read the next section here. If I can remember how to do this, there we go. Boom. Screen shared. So you should be able to see my screen now.
Let me just here. see it. Oh, geez, that is small. Though if I can actually read it, it's kind of...
Here, let me zoom up for you. Let me zoom. And you can also read this text up here too. I missed it, but you can read that as well.
Alright, let me get through the Silver Dragon's Den.
Sure.
So, the storyline. In a tavern, your party overhears Tavern Tale 23 about an ancient silver dragon in Dragonspine Mountains. If they follow the barren river to its source, they find a pass. Hidden in the pass is the den of the Silver Dragon. There is no map in this adventure. Talk to the dragon and it will give you information. Do not attack the dragon because he is overbearing. Especially do not attack him twice.
Gotcha. Good to know.
So, I wonder how many of these Tavern Tales people actually heard this game because, I mean, I quickly learned in this game you don't hang out in the tavern
Right.
long because there will be a tavern brawl and then it just becomes a nightmare.
I fully agree. I hate entering the tavern. The game discourages you from hearing these tavern tales. I couldn't agree with you more. Do you want to take the rest of this text here, starting from in general?
Sure. In general, the random monsters in the Western Wilderness are the toughest of the three areas. Especially beware the Stride Creed, where they are tough and nasty and have multi-attack. They suck. When visiting Silver Dragon's Den, follow the river and stay in the Central Wilderness for as long as you can. Then travel northwest along the river and pass to the Den of the Silver Dragon. To the travel of the Buccaneer's Base or the outpost of Zental Keep, take a direct route along the shore of the Moon Sea, from where the boat lets you off on your destination. You want to avoid combat with the intelligent, nasty encounters in all three wilderness areas. Choose Parlay, and then choose Abusive. I don't think I ever used either of those options in all my playthroughs of this game. If you want to avoid combat with neutral or nice encounters, choose Parlay, and then choose Nice. A spokesman with a high charisma helps in either case. So yeah, for people wondering if charisma has any bearing, there's only like a few chances where charisma actually comes up in the game. Just much like it does in like original D&D. Charisma just kind of is there until it comes up in some random way. In each wilderness... Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I'm just lowering the volume a little bit. There you go.
In each wilderness, your party has a fair chance to rest. Sometimes your party will be interrupted with an encounter before they can even memorize the spell. Well, yeah. Other times, the party can rest for many days before an encounter. If your party is badly hurt, it's not a bad idea to simply encamp in the middle of the wilderness and rest up.
Huh. Thank you, Badoo. So let's see if there's any more to the Silver Dragon entry here. Oh, none. Interesting.
No. I'll go ahead and say there's a reason that a lot of the Silver Dragon stuff is kept fairly vague.
Ah. Okay, so he sent us on a quest to find some kobolds. So let's go back to the game here. And let's get out of this cave. Uh-oh. No, we didn't bug out. Okay, I thought we did for a second. Gosh. Is there a quick exit from here? The comrade falls into a pool of water. Okay, great. Some items were lost! Recovering the comrade? No. No, we didn't lose any items. We didn't lose any items.
It happens.
Okay, none of the important items have been lost. That's the important thing here. At least that's what I think. Gosh damn it.
That's the comrades. Have you looked at anybody else's?
Oh shit, you're right. Yeah, let's take a look. Okay, Gauntlets of Ogre Power. That's pretty much the only item we really care about. Everything equipped looks good. I hate this place. Yeah, let's get the heck out of this kobold caves. Yeah, we look fairly okay. I can't see anything that I may have lost it. Yeah, Bracers of AC3. Ring of Feather Falling. Okay.
You're gonna go back looking at like your
I am. I'm gonna do a side-by-side comparison.
What did I miss?
Yes. That's exactly what I'm gonna do. Bugman says, DM Wyvern, do you have a PDF? Oops, sorry. of some sort of the official manual for this game sounds like it's necessary to have, but I would assume the Good Old Games version includes that. Yeah, the Good Old Games version includes the manual, the clue book, all of the supplements that came with the original packaged game, Bugmite. Huh.
Yeah, you need a lot of that, a lot of these items to kind of make the game a full experience. Trying to play without the journals or clue books or something, you miss out on most, if not all, the content, and you're just kind of wandering aimlessly until you actually get somewhere. So it's kind of like playing Wizardry, I guess.
That's funny. I'm really curious about the recent Wizardry restoration that came out a couple of months ago.
I've had my eyes on that for a while. I keep looking at it, and then I think, okay,
when am I going to play it?
A fairly limited amount of time in my day as is.
Right.
I really want to commit myself to enduring Wizardry.
That's exactly why I didn't pick up Space Marine 2. I mean, I'd love to play it. The idea of playing that game sounds fun to me, but am I ever going to have the time for it anytime soon? Doubtful. Very doubtful. But maybe one day you and I will check out the new Wizardry game. However, I think for now, this is where we're going to call it a session. There's a lot more to be discovered here in Pool of Radiance, and I'm looking forward to having on my next guest as part of this live stream series. I don't know who that guest will be at this point in time, but I hope to have some news for the adventures here in a couple of weeks, and I'm pretty sure it will be as exciting and interesting a conversation as the one we had with George Ziets here. I want to thank all the adventurers here at the end of the stream who are with us. Velwin, thank you for being here. Garrus, a.k.a. Lizard Flame 1, Bugmite, Gabriel Rodriguez, Lady Inertia saying, I'm heading to bed, but I want to say hello, and I hope you had a good day. My good friend, Lady Inertia, who is in fact my coworker these days. Good to have you here at the Wyvern Slayer, Lady. I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow at work, probably. We got Sa joining us from Australia. And of course, Hacksaw91, a.k.a. Linthal, and my good friend, Punish Bidoof, here in the live stream with me. Thank you all for being here. Bidoof, so good hearing your voice once again after a very long time. My best wishes to you, Linthal, and your families out there, and I'm looking forward to hopefully gaming with you all soon.
Yeah, it'll be great. Maybe you're now having me actually look at the Wizardry Steam page. This is terrible. So I'm going to call it a night as well before I do something stupid. On the eve that patch 7 drops, I'm sitting here like, yeah, maybe I want to play through Wizardry 1.
Good night, Bidoof. Good night, adventurers. Good seeing everyone.
Good night.